off at some swimming official training or something down in Albuquerque. So I had invited on my friend Thomas MacEntee to join me here. And we got a fun topic to talk about today. Now, just so everybody knows, I didn't tell Thomas until about 10 minutes ago what that topic was going to be. So everything that you're hearing today is pretty much off the top of his head, and it's also off the top of my head. And I think it is a pretty relevant topic for genealogy, and that is artificial intelligence and genealogy. So I guess my first question, Thomas, have you seen any webinars or classes at any conferences about using AI with genealogy? Has that even happened yet?
Yeah, and first I want to say thanks for having me on the show, but I have not seen any webinars, any lectures as of yet. I really think the topic is very new. I remember like when I did one of the first webinars on wearables and QR codes in genealogy, it takes a while. Right now there's a lot of chatter out on Facebook, within Facebook genealogy groups. I'm now on Threads. It's on Twitter. We're talking about the impact of artificial intelligence. I think part of the problem about holding a class is, as I said to you when we started, we're still in the first wave. And what I mean by that is if the listeners and viewers remember, we used to use Netscape when the internet started. And now what is the predominant, search engine? Google. It used to be MySpace instead of Facebook. So there's this theory that it's always the second iteration of something that really takes hold. So I think it's a little bit too soon. But there is great discussion out there. I mean, there's several different. There's OpenAI. There's ChatGPT. I'm using Bard right now, Google, because I saw the 60 Minutes piece on it a few weeks ago on Bard, and they repeated it this summer. So if you go to 60 Minutes Overtime, you can probably find that. And I've used all of them. I like Bard, but there are a lot of issues involved. And I think that's why no one has stepped up to do one webinar. I mean, I think this might be one of the first streaming shows in genealogy that covers the topic.
Yeah. So I've pulled up here on the screen for our viewers to see the ChatGPT, and I just signed up. I don't use AI. I haven't used it. I know Devin has done a couple of videos on it with a couple of different things, and she's used it for some things. But I just literally signed up for this at 9:30 today.
Right.
And what I wanted to just start with is just looking at, the homepage here. When you get into ChatGPT, let me see if I can zoom in a little bit more. It gives you some examples of, hey, here's how to ask a question. But then it's really the capabilities and the limitations that I think people need to look at and think about when you're thinking about genealogy. So, for instance, it says, it remembers what user said earlier in the conversation.
Right.
So you could seed this, I guess, in a way. And by that, I mean, get it going in the right direction by continuing a conversation with it.
Exactly.
It allows user to provide follow-up corrections. So if it says something wrong that is wrong, you can tell the user, that's not right. Mm-hmm. This is right.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that you would need to have some type of source or backup information. I don't know. I haven't used that feature yet, but anyone could say that's wrong, and then boom. What does ChatGPT base that on?
Right. Next one here is trained to decline inappropriate requests.
I've seen that. Yes.
And this is the internet, so inappropriate stuff is all over.
It is, though. I mean, it's funny because I did my training with ChatGPT. As I said, create a limerick for genealogy. And then I said, create, the third grade boy in me came out and said, create a limerick for farts. And I think it declined the farts.
That's pretty mild. That's not offensive. That's just
but still, yes, exactly. But I think it's important to know that middle one on capabilities is, in terms of source. I mean, there's so much false information out there, misleading information, misinformation. And one thing I do want to say about ChatGPT, there is still a famous court case. I don't know if you read.
Yes.
These attorneys were preparing a defense. And when I did legal work for many years as a secretary and word processor, you have to have a table of authorities. You need to reference previous cases to support your argument. Well, they ran it through GPT, and ChatGPT just made up cases.
Right.
They were fined. I think the fine was pretty hefty, 10 grand, and it's still, they may lose their bar license over it.
Well, and not only that, but I saw that, and I'm not sure if it was just the court, or the, and like I said, I can't remember, the specific thing, or if it was the lawmakers then decided that, hey, we need to have a law of you cannot use AIs for preparation of court documents.
It probably wasn't lawmakers
saying that no, this was prepared without AI.
Yeah, so it wasn't lawmakers. It probably is each state's bar association, and it's the court that sets the rules in terms of what can and can be accepted. And so, the lawmakers right now, they're still, trying to, well, we have a lot of lawmakers. I don't know. I have this theory that we're a gerontocracy sometimes, and a lot of, I swear there are lawmakers that have never been on the internet. And how can you set policy? But the thing is, they're still grappling with it. I think we've seen it for a while in genealogy, mostly through MyHeritage, when they started the photo tools. In a way that's AI. In fact, do you know that MyHeritage, their first big breakthrough was you would upload your photo and they would match you to a celebrity, a lookalike. That's how they got started in social media.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah. In fact, and so that's how they got started. They brought in those that were tracking celebrities on social media. It was an ingenious marketing device. But now we've got, a lot of tools from MyHeritage. The other way that you're seeing AI technically was used to index the 1950 census with the handwriting. Mm-hmm. And also, I post weekly over at my site. When Family Search updates its new records, you'll see something called computer-aided indexing for certain collections. Yeah. And what they're going through and using AI to do that. Mm-hmm. So the thing is, it's already been there, and maybe you didn't even know it in genealogy. But I think those limitations are great. I like this screen that they use.
I just wanted to go through the limitations real quick because they are very pertinent to genealogy itself. First one, may occasionally generate incorrect information, which if you're using this for any kind of genealogy, think of it, I guess I would say, as, hey, somebody gave you a tree, or you found a tree on Ancestry. Yeah, that's great. You may be excited that they have all this stuff, but make sure you go back and check it.
I would never cite AI right now as a source. To me, it's clues. Clues are always helpful, but I can't see using this in a genealogy report and using it as a source. No way.
May occasionally produce harmful instructions or biased content. And the thing that I think about here is those stories that you hear about people following GPS and driving off into the lakes or something. It's like, you got to keep some common sense.
Right.
Anytime you're using a computer, because the computer, it has no feelings. It doesn't care.
The technology is innocent. Basically, it's how we use it.
It's doing exactly what it was told to do. And that includes the AI programs, how they were programmed. And I don't even know how they're programmed, but how they're programmed is going to affect what the output is.
Right.
And then this last one, limited knowledge of world and events after 2021.
Yes. This all comes down to where the info is sourced. And right now there's a copyright suit with with authors saying that several of these have basically gone in and scraped the digital versions of their work and are using. I mean, this stuff doesn't come out of thin air. This is not all just user input in source. So now the piece on 60 Minutes that Google said about Bard said that they didn't source that way, but come on, it's got to come from somewhere. It's not all just skimming, indexes on Google and spider bots and that. So that's one concern, is how is this being sourced? Mm-hmm. And then, as an author myself, I just updated one of my books. The thing is, how did they get that information? Right. Now, if I stupidly put it out as a free PDF, which I stupidly do sometimes, hey, that's my fault. But if I have something that I'm pretty sure is tied down in terms of intellectual property, then what do you do? The other thing is also in the artwork world. and this goes back to MyHeritage with some of its features. It did that AI where you can come out as a Greek god or a English princess or whatever. They go ahead and they do those filters. Basically, I think last year there was a digital art contest, and the winner was someone that used AI. Now, the rules didn't say you couldn't use AI, but the other artists, the finalists, were really ticked off that was the winner.
And this is interesting because when you're talking about art, I know that just over the last few months, as there's been different stories in the news about using AI and art and all that stuff. One of the things that I saw often, not just once or twice, but often, is AI generated art and people had 6 fingers.
Yes.
It was like the oddest thing to me because, like, wait a second.
Yeah.
There are humans that have 6 fingers.
But still.
But it's not like, hey, every other human has 6 fingers. Like, why is this doing 6 fingers so much?
And you have to wonder, what was the input? What data was input to create this?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. And it wasn't like an oddball 6 fingers. It's like, you have a hand like this, and then you start, you just think it's odd, and you start counting. It's like, wait a second, there's the thumb, and then there's 5 fingers, including the thumb.
Right. Now, what are your thoughts, Andy, in terms of being able to know whether something is AI or not? What about watermarking, or because that's what MyHeritage started doing. They originally had that wand symbol when you use their photo tools, but now when you use their AI tools, they have another watermark so that Otherwise, we get into the whole idea of deepfakes. There's a great article on CNN today. They took Anderson Cooper and did a video of him doing karaoke, which he's never done. Basically, it was, so it's going to be in the news. And that was the concern. MyHeritage had come to me before they did the animated part, and they wanted my opinion, and I said, you've got to lock this down so they can't use images of living people, or have that admonition, because then it gets into a whole other liability issue of deepfake. So what are your thoughts about being able to know automatically?
Okay, so well, I guess 2 sides of this. One, from a company side, or going back to the one legal case that we were talking about. Anytime you are using AI for generating creative stuff, I think you should be saying that. You should be, hey, I use this for this. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad, because that AI might be good for, hey, the background of this was created with AI, and then I painted these other things over it or something, whatever, like that. With companies, like you said, with MyHeritage, watermarking, something like that, I think is great from the company standpoint.
Right.
And I think, I'm not sure if they do this with like their colorized photos. Whenever you colorize a photo, does MyHeritage watermark it?
Yeah, dude, with the wand. It looks like a magic wand with sparkles on it. So that goes on enhancement, repair, any of those photo tools. But when you get into the AI photo tools, it's a different mark.
Okay, so it's a different mark to do that.
Yeah.
Now, that's, I guess, the one side of that. The other side of that is for those who don't play that game and don't watermark or don't state that, yeah, this article was created with AI. There's not a way right now that I see that you can distinguish that. And that's the problem.
I think there are ways. I know that right now there are some ways to use, some sleuths use Photoshop, Adobe, to tell whether a photo is real or not. They go down to the pixel level. And I think there will be tools. There have to be tools. I know U.S. intelligence will create those tools. But the problem is, people believe too much what is on the internet. I think that was a quote from Abraham Lincoln, right?
Yes,
he said,
I read
don't
that
believe
one.
everything on the internet.
It was in a letter to Thomas Jefferson.
Exactly, yeah. And so the thing is, I think we need to get away from that as well. Another issue I want to bring up, and I want to get more into it with genealogy too, but what about copyright? What if I create maybe this poem on genealogy, this limerick? Who owns the copyright?
I would say this. My interpretation of copyright, and I'm not a lawyer.
Yeah.
My interpretation of copyright is nobody.
Okay.
And here's what I base that on. if you remember several years back, there was a selfie of a monkey.
Baboon, yes.
Yeah,
Macaque monkey, yes.
Baboon had taken that selfie himself.
Right. Even though
and
the photographer
owner of the camera, who might have, set up something, he was claiming copyright to it when it was being used in publications. And there was actually, I believe, a lawsuit about that that went before the courts. And if I remember correctly, the court said no, because copyright can only be owned by humans, persons, and it is the creator of the work that owns the initial copyright, which means if you have a painting that was done by an elephant, which you can get when you go to some places, they are very creative.
Yes.
Nobody owns that copyright.
Right. It also comes down to
a picture of the baboon.
Yeah. So it was in the UK courts, basically. Now, the way I know that photo is not copyrighted is Wikipedia uses it. And usually they won't use something. The other thing is we're talking about consent. An animal, a non-human, cannot consent into a contract.
Correct.
So that invalidates. So I believe that there have been recent cases where they're more on the local courts, and this will wind up at the upper level courts anyway. And they've said that it can't be copyrighted, But the thing is, I don't know if you use LinkedIn. I've been using LinkedIn lately, and when I go to post something, it says, "Do you want to use AI to generate your posts?" That's brand new this week. And the thing is, I'm wondering if I use it as like sourdough starter for an article, what do I own? If I massage it? The other ways that I see, which I just despise right now, I think that news outlets and newspapers are getting rid of proofreaders and editors, because I have seen some headlines that just do not make sense. They're grammatically incorrect. Or they'll come up with this. There was some kind of crime here in the Gold Coast. They said, blah, blah, blah in the GC. I'm like, what is the GC? Maybe I'm too old and it's a hip phrase, but I think the thing is that it's a push for SEO, search engine optimization, and relying too much on AI. And I've seen in the past year just a lot of mistakes in articles, grammatically, terminology that doesn't make sense. And I think that AI is being used on that.
Yeah. So let's go on with that, what you're talking about as far as an article. So let's say that you make this poem, this limerick.
Sure.
Okay. And you have AI and it creates that limerick. And
go to ChatGPT, do it. Just say.
Okay, let's go over to ChatGPT. Let me pull this back up, add some stream.
And just say in the message, create a limerick about genealogy. About genealogy.
What?
Genealogy.
Genealogy.
Yeah.
Let's see if it writes the same one that you had. Okay. In search for roots, I began genealogy's puzzle, a grand plan. Through dusty old scrolls, names and stories unfold. Family's tale like grains in the sand. Not bad.
No, not bad.
That's better than I would be able to do in the 5 seconds it took.
Right, exactly. And you can do one for, and then you can go on. And notice you can do a like or an unlike over there. And I think the clipboard will let you copy it.
Okay.
And there are tools like that. And I've done this through, the other one is Bard, B-A-R-D, and OpenAI. And they all generate something very similar.
Okay. So we're going to start with this limerick.
Sure.
And we both agree that nobody owns the copyright to this limerick.
Right.
We can both post this everywhere. We
create
can
a T-shirt. Create a T-shirt.
Book.
You create a T-shirt on Zazzle with it. Whatever.
Yeah. Doesn't matter. Now, on the other hand, if you took this limerick, and limerick is hard because there's so many limitations to it. But if you, Thomas, took this limerick and you change this up, and I'm not even sure how I'd change it up because I'm not a poet or anything.
Sure.
But if you change this up so that you added to it, you modified it, changed some of the words, maybe even changed some of the meanings with, of whatever slight bit here or there. Now, all of a sudden, you have created a copyrightable work that you own the copyright to.
Exactly. Right. Which is different than if you were to take my work and try and create something based on it, like the latest Andy Warhol lawsuit, the photos that he took. And it was determined that he did not have the copyright. See, a copyright holder, that's one of the I guess, powers that you have is you have this exclusive right to create modified copies. Since no one has a copyright here, and again, I'm not a lawyer. I do play one on TV, though. Yeah.
But you worked in the law office.
I did for 30 years. For 30 years, I worked in, and believe me, I saw a lot of stuff come by, and I learned a lot. But the thing is, there's no copyright holder here. So you can use it de facto as it is, or you can base it and do it that way. And, you could also you could say, create a haiku about genealogy or create a limerick about family history. Tell me about the life of, okay, is that one of your ancestors?
Yes, it is.
Great.
So
okay.
I know that
Great.
Devin has done this a couple of times.
Sure.
So this is my grandfather. Okay, so here's interesting.
And you
AI is a language model. I don't have access to real-time data or individual-specific information beyond my knowledge cutoff date of September 21st. Okay, so first off, that shouldn't matter because he actually died in 2014. So there's plenty of records out there of that. Therefore, I can't provide specific details about Bert and Eugene Lee's life or any other individuals born after that date.
Right. So the
I said
thing is,
1922. I just wanted to make sure I said the right thing.
So basically, this person doesn't have a notoriety or isn't a public figure. It doesn't mean that down the road this information. So I will sacrifice myself. Why don't you tell me about Thomas MacEntee?
Thomas MacEntee is a prominent figure in the genealogy community. He is a genealogist, educator, author, and speaker known for his contributions to the field of family history research. This sounds like something right off of your website, is it?
Well, it's my bio. Yes, exactly. Yes, yes.
Thomas MacEntee is widely recognized for his expertise in using technology and that's all it's done is it's just gone to your bio and copied your bio.
Right, exactly.
I'm curious. Now here's with me.
Scroll down some more. I want to see what else, if it picked up anything else based on
numerous authors and books.
Okay, yeah.
Sought after speaker and educator.
That's it. Okay, yeah. So that's all based on my bio, which is on my website, and it's also bios. Remember when societies post webinar lists, my webinars, they always ask for a 100-word bio. So yeah.
Now my name is much more common than your name.
But so you had to have a delimiter, Family History Fanatics. Yes.
Yeah. In fact, there's a kicker in the NFL, Andrew Peely, same middle initial as me, that always gets brought up whenever you're searching for me.
Right.
So let's see if I put that delimiter. All right. One of the co-founders of Family Fanatics, popular generator for his YouTube channel and website, alongside his wife Devin Noel Lee. Andrew has been actively involved in commitment. Don't forget gaining your information, channels, offer tutorials, tips, blah, blah, blah. Approach genealogy through the creativity. Yeah, this is almost word for word.
Right. And you probably have this posted as a listing on your website, on YouTube, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's where that's what I find the limitations. I find that Bard is a little bit more creative and open AI as well. Bard was easy to sign up for because I have Google Workspace as well. And so I've thought about starting an article with that. But again, I wish I knew where the information was coming from.
And that's the one thing here, as you said, is when we looked at this, let me add this again here.
Yeah.
It doesn't say, hey, I just pulled this right off of their website.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just says.
So why don't you type this one? The word Huguenot, Hugo, Hugo, space. No, that's fine. You're fine there. After Huguenot. It's not spelled right. Right click over it and see what the spelling is.
I have that. Huguenot.
Hugo, Hugo, space Freer, Freer. He's my 9th great grandfather. I want to see what they have on him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hugo Freer,
yeah,
also known as Huguenot Hugo Freer, was a prominent figure in Huguenot history and the early settlement of New York. He's born in France in 1621. Is that correct so far?
That's correct, yes.
Which is a group of French Protestants who faced persecution. In the 17th century, Hugo Freer immigrated to the New World to escape religious persecution, seek a better life. He arrived in New Netherland, which was then a Dutch colony. Freer played a role essential pioneer in development of the New Netherland colony, involved in religious trading activities with both Native American tribes and the Dutch authorities.
Yeah. That's all true, and that's all out there in books where the copyright has expired. One thing they didn't mention is he found in New Paltz, New York, in Ulster County. So I'm surprised that they haven't done that. They haven't, and so for sources, I'd love to see the sources for this, like the Huguenot Society of America and everything. That would give me. I also, from a genealogy research standpoint, I would love to see links to do further investigation. See, and that's an area that I think is lacking.
So let me just type, what is your source for this information? All right. And so it has this canned response. I think Devin was telling me about this, that basically says, I'm just a language model, and so I don't, do that.
We have a joke. Yeah, we have a joke here at home. If you've seen the movie Space Odyssey 2001.
Yep.
So I expect at some point to say, I can't do that, Hal. And that one of these AIs will do that. But of course, it'll say it in the most polite way. But yeah, so as I said, since this isn't copyrighted material, you don't really know its original source. It really is just, and I'm not finding much to actually help me right now.
Okay.
Nothing that I don't already know.
And I guess that was my next question then, with AI and these programs.
Now, Hugo
particularly the language ones.
Right.
What can we use them for genealogy right now?
Well, right now, I think you could go on topics. I mean, if I wanted to know more about, let's say, Y-DNA or mtDNA and things like that, it gives you background information. But again, no sourcing on that.
Background information for topics, not people specific type of thing.
In fact, let's turn the tables. Go back to ChatGPT. I'm blending the products.
I'm going to delete this chat here.
Yeah, just say, how can I use AI for genealogy?
Okay. How can I use AI for
genealogy?
All right, so it gives you some suggestions. Record transcription.
And we know that through the 1950 U.S. Census.
And like you mentioned before, that's been going on actually for a while.
Right.
Several years at least.
Yes.
And improving. Because I remember before, about 10 years ago, getting any kind of recognition of hands transcribed was awful.
Well, that's the way early scanners. When I worked in the law firms in the late 80s, we had Kurzweil, $10,000 scanner. And it would, with me typing 100 words per minute, it was easier for me to just type the damn thing. But that has evolved as well. You imagine, I know what they have to do for this for AI. They submit samples of loops and letter forms. And Old English is different than secretary hand and German. And so that's what it is. I'm also curious, and we can get into that once we go down the list. What about foreign language stuff? Is this English centric, what we're using at ChatGPT? Google right now covers 177 languages on their Translate program, which is amazing. And I think that Google Bard probably does more in foreign languages. But we already know number one. What about number two?
So let me ask you a follow-up then on number one right now. From what you know on Bard and ChatGPT and the others that you've used, can you upload an image for it to transcribe?
That is, I believe that you can do that. I believe you can. I haven't tried it yet. But right now, let's look at what Google does on their Google image search. You can upload an image and look for a match.
Yes,
I've done that.
I was going to say one of the things that we used when we were in Europe is the Google Translate.
Yeah.
Which it would allow you to, nice clean signs were the best.
Yeah, exactly.
But even handwritten signs, it was able to usually translate them.
Exactly. Yeah. And the other thing is, I just lost this thought. Did I? I'm working with a new vendor called Related Faces. What they do is you can upload a photo and they use AI to find whether if you have several photos, who's related to who.
Okay.
And so I know that it's out there. I haven't tried it yet.
I've heard about that.
You also had like a back of a photo that has
now real quick with that, I know that Devin was using Photoshop, one of the Photoshop tools or whatever, and this is starting 10 years ago, where when it was just getting your photos, after you'd put several in and you'd label them as, hey, this is Joe, this is Fred, it would start to suggest, hey, these photos look like Joe, these photos look like Fred.
Right.
Now, it wasn't the relationship, but it was I've said that this is this person.
Yeah.
Is this person the same one also?
Now, full disclosure here, I think 10 years ago, I had a vendor approach me. They had created software, technology software for the U.S. government, for U.S. Army. When fighting in Afghanistan and the Taliban, usually all the clans are family related. They wanted to be able to take a photo and find out who else was related, blah, blah, blah. So they thought about leveraging this on a consumer end for that. But I think what we're talking now, 10 years forward, is we're working with a library of photos for matching versus traits. And I think that's what you're going to see more of a combination of,
Okay.
To do that. Let's go to data matching.
All right, data matching is the next one. AI algorithms can help you find potential matches for your ancestors in various online databases and historical records. It can quickly sift through vast amounts of information to identify relevant records related to your family.
This is the big power, and this will be historical newspapers. And now for years, do you know what a semantic wiki is? Basically, Wikipedia, when you create an article on like France, it will look and it'll say, oh, these are the French prime ministers, and it'll pull them in from another record. With historical newspapers, I don't know how my great-grandparents met. What if I could go through historical newspapers and I find the names John Ralph Austin and Therese McGinnis together at some event? See what I'm saying? That would be great. If I could put in two names and say, find how they determine when they first met or anything, that's pulling all that data. And that to me is going to be the big power.
So I guess with this number 2, with data matching, then from what it describes here, what ChatGPT is saying that AI can do, that's not something that ChatGPT specifically can do.
Right.
So this is more just AI in general.
Yeah. I'll have you do this when we're done. But what if I wanted to know who else lived at an ancestral address? Because, early on, you didn't just sell to strangers, people that bought property. So what if I could put that in? Right now, MyHeritage, in their city directories, they do this thing where they have an option called Who Else Lived Here? It's not working on AI, but it's pulling other records that list that address. But we could go further with that data matching. I could say, show me advertisements for my second great-grandfather's butcher shop in Lowville, New York. I know that he went bankrupt during the 1903 financial panic, but I want to know about any ads that he did. So I think that, to me, this is the biggest power. This is going to be the biggest power in genealogy.
Okay, this is not something you're going to see from these ChatGPT Bard necessarily. What you're going to see is you're going to see other programs that are probably embedded within your ancestries and family searches and MyHeritage.
Genealogy Bank or newspapers.com, they will have this feature. You're right. They're going to take that AI technology because it takes a heck of a lot of data storage to be able to store. That's why Google newspapers, they don't index any more newspapers. They're up to 25,000 and they stopped several years ago. They have no plans to go forward. It's not a moneymaker. So what about facial recognition? I think we touched upon that.
Yeah, we touched that. Help identify and match individuals in old photographs, even if the images are of poor quality or have minimal identifying information. And in this case, what I would also lump into this, a lot of what MyHeritage has done as far as the colorization, the improvements where you can take this fuzzy, grainy photo, and it will imply a more crisp image from it. Now, I'm not sure how accurate those crisp images are, because when you're talking about, when you think about a pixelated, photo of your face, when you get back far enough, you can see a face in it.
Yeah.
And if you know that person, your mind is probably filling in some of that facial detail.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
But in this case, one of the things when we talked about, the photo programs that were identifying, when you say this is this person, well, it's automatically looking at the other pictures and saying, oh, are these other pictures that person too? Because the face looks the same.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Lineage reconstruction. I could see that. I could see that, but I think that it's going to have a database of a lot of family trees. So again, I think this is something MyHeritage or Ancestor would leverage internally, probably as an added feature.
Well, and one way that I've seen this actually is with 23andMe, their family tree that they have, where they're basically looking at the DNA relationships you have.
Right.
And while some of those DNA relationships might be multiple things, for instance, you share DNA and this might be a grandparent or an aunt or uncle or a half sibling. By looking at multiple people and basically comparing all of those relationships, you can create a tree.
Yes.
Because one of those is the right one. One of those relationships is the right one.
Right.
And if you have enough relationships that you're comparing, then eventually you're going to hit on, oh, these two people have to be this because of these other relationships that this could be. And so that's,
I think the important part here is, again, it's there's only so much data that we as humans can consume. And this is what I call stepping back to see the forest through the trees. A lot of times, like with my genealogy research log, I can't visualize stuff. It's all in a spreadsheet. Now, AI, I would be interested if AI could take the 9 birth records that I found for my great grandfather and help me determine which is the best. See? It could rank them. It could say clarity, use the 4 points that we use in the GPS, and then go through those records and say, based on the genealogical proof standard, this is the best record to prove the birth date of John Ralph Austin. Yeah, DNA analysis.
Helping identify genetic connections with relatives of potential ancestral origins. I would be interested to see where we're going from there, because this is one, when we're talking about big data,
triangulation
by definition is big data.
But the triangulation, which is so difficult right now,
right?
Yeah.
And it's really like going back to 23andMe, their tree is, I guess you could call it, a really initial starting point.
Right.
Theoretically, and I'll just say this theoretically, if we had everybody in the world's DNA and we had a computer powerful enough that it could actually see how everybody in the world matched, then you should be able to build a family tree of how everybody in the world is related.
Right.
The problem there, of course, is this whole everybody in the world.
Yes.
It is huge amounts of information that has to be analyzed in order to do this. And
go ahead.
I was going to say with DNA right now, with your websites, it's already taxing as far as the amount of computer space that you're using.
And getting onto that, there's a concern as to how much energy, what carbon footprint is being left by these servers now the first thing was Bitcoin a few years ago, mining for Bitcoin. Well, now it's progressed into this, is for all of this. And a lot of people see AI as just playing around, and it's not. It's got a lot of power, but what is it consuming in terms of, electricity, fossil fuels, and things like that? That's another consideration.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point.
Number 6, I want to talk about number 6 because I think it relates to the whole idea of the semantic wiki. It can take unstructured text and show relationships. So if I can show my great-grandparents were in the Bronx on this date, it could extract that from that information. And it might find the connections that I just can't because of the amount of information.
Yeah, I was thinking of that, and also thinking of things like old, not necessarily even old, but wills and probates.
Yes.
That are chock full of relationships, whether it is your family relationships, business relationships, anything like that.
Yeah.
And it's not always apparent.
Right. Like a death certificate. Maybe I didn't know the physician was related to the decedent, because maybe it was a different last name. You see what I'm saying?
Here's what I was just thinking. Taking a whole series of death certificates and figuring out what shifts the physicians were working.
Right.
I mean, just something like that, which people belong to the same church because the pastor was there for whatever reason, as the
or people moved church. They moved to a different church because the pastor moved.
Yeah. There's another great thing.
And also with my early Dutch ancestors, there were circuit ministers. That's why there are only baptisms every 6 weeks or whatever, because it's when the minister was in town. So what other churches in the area did that minister go and baptize kids?
Yeah. So I'll tell you one that I was thinking of that might be nice with this. So I had done a presentation a long time ago, and showing about the census, and particularly the 1850 census, like the first one that lists
first one with names.
And in particular, what I chose Abraham Lincoln. And trying to identify where Abraham Lincoln was. And so, we go through what we know about him from history, and we can find where he is in the 1840 census, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say it's the 1840 census.
Okay.
Because he's a tick mark.
Right.
But he's a tick mark where he's supposed to be.
Right.
Now, no, I take that back. It was the 1840 census that you couldn't find him, because we find him in the 1850 census where he is.
Right.
We find him in the 1830 census where he's supposed to be as a tick mark.
Gone in the 1840.
But in the 1840, he's not. Now, we know where he was living, what house he was a boarder at, but there's only one person listed there, and that is the owner of that.
Right.
And you go back and you find about Abraham Lincoln, and he was a circuit court lawyer.
Right.
And that circuit ran from April to June when they were taking the census.
Yep.
There is a set of documents of Abraham Lincoln's cases. And it would be neat with AI to be able to go through this set of cases, finding out, the dates and all this stuff, to basically triangulate where was Abraham Lincoln on that census date.
We'll call it "Where in the World is Abe?" Like where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? Yeah,
and figure out, okay, which tick mark now in the 1840 census is Abraham Lincoln.
Exactly. Yeah. So the other thing is, you could also use it for grass widows. Very often, that women in the 19th century in census would never say they were divorced.
Right.
They'd say widowed. But meanwhile, the husband has some family on the side, one county over. It could help you find that. Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, let's move on. I want to be able to get through this.
Sure. Geographical mapping. Map your ancestors' movements over time.
Yes.
Visualizing great migration patterns and geographic family distribution. And I guess with this, what I think is because this is something that you can do yourself.
Right.
But it's time consuming.
It is.
Very time consuming. And when you're talking about, let's say, a family that has 10 kids and then seeing how those 10 kids migrate.
Yes.
Well, you're talking about hours for each one of those.
Right.
Whereas with AI, if it can be able to take this look at records and it can draw a map of these immigration patterns.
Yeah. And again, though, I would love to find the sources, because when I set up on my maps in Google, I show my Hennebergs in the New York City area. For each pinpoint, I left a source, whether it was a World War I draft card, whether it was 1915 New York Census. See, that's what we will want as genealogists.
Is the source?
We will want to have the sources. And it's not necessarily, is it proprietary? That's what that comes into with AI. Mm-hmm. It also pulls back the curtain as to where they're getting this info.
So. Right. Because if they're, let's just say, for instance, they're only getting their info from Ancestry.com because they got a contract with them.
Yes, exactly.
Well, that's important to know, because then you're missing out on whatever MyHeritage.
And you're looking at bias. You're looking at a biased product. And the bias they need to be transparent about it. Now, the photo colorization, we've gone through that.
Yeah, we have.
And that makes sense. I would hope that they would pull historically what the fashion colors were. Right now, if you go to YouTube and you put in 1930s Easter parade, you'll find movie clips that someone has colorized with AI, and they are amazing. People walking up and down Fifth Avenue. And so that's what it is, but it's got to be in context of that time. There were not neon colors like the 80s, back in the 40s. And so it's got to be somewhat accurate based on unstructured text, maybe. Someone's diary saying, I just bought a new red dress with polka dots, and so.
And I took it to my school pictures.
Exactly.
And now all of a sudden, okay, well, we can find this black and white picture. We know that this dress is a red dress. Not quite what shade.
Yes.
But AI, of course, with the colorization can, if we know that, because that was one of the criticisms that I know Devin had with the MyHeritage, is some of the colors don't match a product. Like you'll get a Santa costume that's green.
Exactly.
It would be nice to be able to say, nope, this is red, and have it change that from a green to a red, with all the variations from shadows and stuff for that.
And if you can make those suggestions, it goes into the library for future refinement.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. A collaborative research. I guess pool your efforts and knowledge. That's a given, basically, Yeah,
and I'm not sure that AI-powered platforms do that.
No.
Or even facilitate that.
No.
Because I look at more, and this is where I think when we say artificial intelligence, it's total misnomer.
Right.
Because this isn't intelligence. This is information processing.
In a way, yes.
And so AI might be able to tell me that, hey, you should contact this person over here who's been doing research.
Right.
Because we both happen to have these hits on the same information.
Right.
But the platform itself, I'm not gonna be using the AI to contact them.
No.
I'm gonna go to my email or whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is. Intelligence would mean that it could think for itself. And that was brought up in the 60 Minutes piece as well. The whole dangerous thing, the whole Terminator thing, where the machines take over. And I think that's also part of the bias against AI that we're seeing in the media. People really don't understand it. I think it comes down to people, and even genealogy, we've been using AI, but we didn't know it.
Yes. Now I want to just show this comment up here that Adam just said. The list has just been generated by GPT chat. It has probably been compiled from various internet sources. Exactly. I don't think anything on here is a original idea from GPT chat.
No.
It might even be the entire list is cribbed from some website somewhere.
Right.
Or it might be parts of it are. Why? Because those websites that ChatGPT was using happen to have something related to how can I use AI for genealogy.
Exactly. Right. Go back to ChatGPT.
Okay.
I want to try this address issue.
Address.
Put in down below. Yeah. Or a new chat is fine. Yeah. 2482 Elm, ELM, Place, Bronx, BRONX, New York. Okay. All right.
Okay. So it's saying it can't tell you about people who live there.
That's interesting. Yeah. All right. Now, the other thing that I just added to my own Google search is I added the AI component. I was asked to be part of the beta. So now when I do a search on Google, I have a pink area up top that says, would you like to use AI for this? And so I will try that with that address. That is the house that my second great grandfather bought in 1920 in the Bronx, New York. And, right off of Grand Concourse near the Bronx Zoo and, Fordham University. And I'm always curious as to, who maybe bought it or lived in it later. Things, or what land was there, who owned that land before the house was bought. The house was supposedly brand new in 1920.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. But
why don't we try this?
Yeah.
Why don't we be a little bit more specific?
Sure.
And say, who lived in 1930?
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, that's interesting that it suggests a census.
Okay. So it gives you a go someplace else.
Yeah, do 1920 instead of 1930. I want to try something.
And that was the same canned answer.
Okay. So what it didn't mention, though, is the New York State Census of 1915 or 1925. See, I was hoping that it might pull from that. So it needs to expand. Yeah. Now, do one last closing funny.
Sure.
Why don't you say, write a sonnet about genealogy in the style of William Shakespeare? Because Bard does this very well, this style of feature. Wow.
There you go.
Yeah.
And you can use that on a t-shirt.
Exactly. Well, I think it'd be a bit much on a t-shirt, but yeah. Yeah. So, so this does it. Yeah. And, Bard also composes long paragraphs of text. To do that. So I've been trying all three. I've been trying OpenAI. I've also tried a few of the artwork ones, and I have not been as successful. And let's try that.
Yeah, somebody suggested trying a non-census year. Yeah, see here they don't talk about specific U.S. census. They just say,
they branch it out, right?
Directory, census state, or property records from that time period.
Right.
So I think this first part about beyond the 1920 or the 2021 is irrelevant because we're looking
at their standard disclaimer. Yeah.
Which is odd though, because I don't have access to real-time data or historical records beyond that date, including specific information about who lived at a particular address in 1925, which is well before this date.
Yeah. But also, I think that AI like this could answer questions about, I mean, I use the Family Search Wiki for this, but if I didn't know, a lot of people don't know you have to go through the court system for naturalization and certificates and everything like that. They think it's going to be in the local with vital records. So AI could help point you, hopefully, to where to get that record. Or they might know the difference between Ellis Island and Castle Garden with the cutoff date.
What is the difference between Ellis Island and Castle Garden?
Yeah, the Greeks used to call it Kastegati when they came in on the ship. Kastegati. Yeah, Castle Clinton, right.
Okay, so here they, as this keeps on going.
Yeah, that's correct.
They identify in there exactly as far as when this operated and when that one operated, so that you have dates of when to be looking at records depending on who you have.
Right. Yeah. And the other one is just for trivia, go down and say, what was the last country to switch to the Gregorian calendar?
Oh, yes. I like this one.
And I know the answer.
I know this one too.
Oh, okay. Wow. So
now you probably mean from the Julian to the Gregorian.
I guess. Yeah, I get them mixed up. It's my dyslexia.
No.
But the thing is,
because
it does make a difference.
Would not have been using the Julian calendar before
so basically, the answer is Greece in 1923, I think. So
Julian, there. Yes, Greece, 1923.
Exactly. Yes.
And one of the ones shortly before that was Russia.
Right.
In 1918.
During the revolution, yes.
During the revolution. So the October Revolution
happened
in Russia in October.
I know.
But everywhere else in the world, it happened in November.
I know. With Greek, I do Greek genealogy research, and you have to factor in that date.
And that's what some people don't realize is how recent this is you're talking about just, 3 generations?
Talking 100 years. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Before you're back to where days are not the same thing anymore.
Right.
And so, and this is, so let me ask you this, when you're talking about Greek genealogy, so passenger records, do you ever have any where they're leaving from a Greek port and arriving in a U.S. port?
No, usually they wouldn't leave from a Greek port. It would be through Southampton. It would be through Le Havre. It would be Hamburg, any of those to get there.
So they would be traveling to someplace else to get to
One of the saving graces why this doesn't really matter is there are not many surviving records before World War II.
Gotcha.
My mother-in-law was born in 1933 in Greece. And she had, when she came over during the Greek Civil War, in I believe 1949 or after, she didn't have proof of birth. So they had to do a delayed, an affidavit where the priest was there, Maria's mother was there, and everything is based on the Greek calendar, the church calendar. So she said, oh, I remember I had Maria around the Epiphany, which is January 5th. And so basically the priest said, oh, good, your birth date is January 10th, 1933. And that's how she got into the U.S. And it's very common in the rural areas that you had no proof of birth. So in a way that negates, but a passenger list, I believe that if someone were to fly, of course, in the 50s, then, you would have a passenger list. You would have a manifest for the air flight. But no, I don't know of many. Even in the 60s, there was an influx of Greeks to Australia because it was a labor incentive. They were paid to move to Australia. Mm-hmm. But those boats would definitely, they had to go out through the Mediterranean, through Gibraltar and then down, something like that. So, well, we're almost at time here.
So there's a couple comments I just wanted to wrap up with what some people said in what regards to what we're saying. So Stacy talks about, hey, if the AI is gathering info from copyrighted sources, then we need to be careful in using it since we cannot find the sources to see what is copyrighted and would be in our original stuff.
Exactly.
And we touched on that a little bit. Is that these are not none of the ones that you talked about, Bard and OpenAI and ChatGPT. None of them actually show sources.
But look at what we just did. When we asked it, how could you use AI for genealogy? It came up with ideas that we may not have thought of, and it's more of an inspiration point. So it would be me researching. If I'm asked to write an article about AI and genealogy, it helps give me some structure.
Yeah.
I'm not going to use that information verbatim. But it's going to give me bullet points. It's going to give me something to expand upon. And I think that's what LinkedIn is doing with their AI and posting. And yeah, I actually think that the person of the year for Time Magazine is going to be AI this year. I made the prediction right here. I really do.
It was the personal computer back in 1980, right?
Well, I think it was 1984 because was it because IBM came out in 1981? Yeah. But yeah, you're right. I mean, it doesn't have to be a human. So great. But no, this has been great. It's given me some great ideas on what to explore later this weekend with that. And yeah, I think that we need to be judicious in terms of how we use it. I think I'm more of in an observer mode. Like I said, second iteration is always when things get solidified, standards are set. I think there do need to be standards, and I don't think they will inhibit the business end of AI. Regulations, there's always this push. Oh, we don't need regulation. We'll self-regulate. That ain't going to happen. But I would want to know when something, especially images, are AI generated. I think we have a right to know and have that transparency. So, great.
So I'd encourage everybody who's watching to go and try it out, but also, I guess, keep in mind those limitations and capabilities that we talked about in the beginning that the programs tell you. Primarily be looking at it from I guess what did we say, the topic standpoint. Look for information topically as opposed to
ideas,
trying to solve a specific problem.
For ideas, for directions. So maybe you didn't think of going to city directories for someone in an address 1925. Boom. Then you've got a clue and a starting point. Like I said, I don't think right now we're at a point where we could use do a source citation on something generated by AI.
Yeah.
Because we don't know. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I doubt that after you find out, oh yeah, I should go to city directories. If you ask ChatGPT what city directories are available for this, I don't think it's going to give you a comprehensive list at all.
No, now I think though Ancestor and MyHeritage can build that capability, but will it be biased towards what's in their collection? Whereas Family Search, I mean, they're universal. I would love to see them do so. Instead of me typing and going through the wiki on Family Search, that it would say what city directories are available for Oklahoma City in 1920s, and it would be able to generate that. That would be the true power, that I would love to see right now. But again, just to wrap up, making those connections where there's too much data for us to stand back and make. That's going to be the power, and taking things like there were columns in newspapers saying people expected to arrive at hotels today, which blows my mind in 1903. But it means that person was in a specific place on a specific date outside of a census year, and then you start with that and you start tracing to who else was in town that, and did they go to the same event or is this how they met? So, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you very much, Thomas, for joining me today.
Great. This is great. I want to do it again. Do it again on another topic, or maybe a year from now we come back on AI.
Yeah, we might.
There's got to be a National AI Day coming up soon. Someone's going to create it, and like National DNA Day. But yeah, this is an interesting, but it's one of those topics that we need to be aware of as genealogists.
Yep. And I think you're going to be seeing AI. Actually, no, I take that back. You probably won't be seeing that AI is actually going to be integrated more and more in the programs that you're using already.
Right. Exactly. Great. All right. Thanks. Have a good day, everyone.
All right. See you all later.
Bye-bye.